Hi students, it's Miss Clark, and as we get ready to read the epic play Antigone by Sophocles, I wanted to read an excerpt to you from a chapter of the book called How to Read Literature Like a Professor. So first things first, I'm going to go to my web browser and type in How to Read Literature Like a Professor and find that online. And once I do, here is an example of the cover of the New York Times bestselling book, How to Read Literature Like a Professor, a lively and entertaining guide to reading between the lines by Thomas C. Foster. So I'll kind of scroll down here so that you can see some of the chapter headings in case you're interested in reading more. But the chapter that we're specifically going to is chapter 22. He's blind for a reason, you know. So let me explain this first. There's a character named Tiresias, and we'll talk about that here. But I want you to have some insight into that character and his importance in the overall storyline or the plot for the play. So we'll read this chapter. If you'll please follow along as I read, that would be great. And we'll explain a little bit more of this after you guys have an opportunity to read this. So he's blind for a reason, you know. Here's the setup. You have a man, a largely admirable man, capable, intelligent, strong, if slightly quick to anger, with a problem. Unbeknownst to him, he has committed the two most hideous crimes in the human catalog of evil. So unaware is he of his sins that he agrees to hunt down the criminal, promising all kinds of punishment. An information specialist, someone who can shed light on the search he has undertaken, who can show our hero the truth, is summoned. When the specialist arrives, he's blind, can't see a thing in the world. As it turns out, though, he is able to see things in the spirit and divine world, can see the truth of what's actually happened, truth to which our hero is utterly oblivious. The blind specialist gets into a heated argument with the protagonist, who accuses the specialist of fraud, and is accused in turn of being the worst sort of malefactor, one who, by the way, is blind to what really matters. What did this fellow do? Nothing much, just murder his father and marry his mother. 2.5 millennia ago, Sophocles wrote a little play called Oedipus Rex. Tiresias, the blind seer, does indeed know the whole truth about King Oedipus, sees everything, although that knowledge is so painful that he tries to hold it back, and when he does blurt it out, it is in a moment of such anger that no one believes him. Oedipus, meanwhile, who until the very end remains in the dark, makes constant reference to sight. He will, quote, bring the matter to light, will, quote, look into things, will, quote, show everyone the truth. Every time he says one of these things, the audience gasps and squirms in its seats because we see what's going on long before he does. When he finally sees the horror that is his life, children who are also siblings, a wife-mother driven to suicide, a curse like no other on him and his family, he exacts a terrible punishment indeed. He blinds himself. There are a lot of things that have to happen when a writer introduces a blind character into a story, and even more in a play. Every move, every statement by or about that character has to accommodate the lack of sight. Every other character has to notice, to behave differently, if only in subtle ways. In other words, the author has created a minor constellation of difficulties for himself by introducing a blind character into the work. So something important must be at stake when blindness pops up in a story. Clearly, the author wants to emphasize other levels of sight and blindness beyond the physical. Moreover, such references are usually quite pervasive in a work where insight and blindness are at issue. For example, first-time readers or viewers will observe that Tiresias is blind, but sees the real story, and Oedipus is blind to the truth and eventually blinds himself. What they may miss, though, is the much more elaborate pattern running through the fabric of the play. Every scene, it seems, every ode by the chorus, contains references to seeing, who saw what, who failed to see, who was really blind, and images of light and darkness, which have everything to do with seeing or not seeing. More than any other work, Oedipus Rex taught me how to read literary blindness, taught me that as soon as we notice blindness and sight as thematic components of a work, more and more related images and phrases emerge in the text. This challenging thing about literature is finding answers, but equally important is recognizing what questions need to be asked. And if we pay attention, the text usually tells us. I didn't always